Hey everyone, and welcome. You guys absolutely smashed the 2000 likes goal on the last jungle video, where we taught you how to counter the meta route of red into Krugs. As promised, today you'll learn a super effective route you can use to crush the enemy jungler when they start at their blue buff. The reason why this is so important is that there is a blue buff route that is becoming more meta, which is being used to destroy players that start at their red buff. We broke down the increasingly popular blue buff route in last week's video, where you start at your blue, do Gromp, then Scuttle, then transition gank mid for 2 minions of experience to hit level 3, and then take the next Scuttle. This is being used in pro play, as seen when HLE Bono used it to crush SKT Kindred, as well as in solo queue where we saw Sandbox on Fleek use it. Think of this yourself. You start the game getting a leash on your red buff. You notice that top lane shows early and the enemy bot lane is missing, indicating that the enemy is getting a leash on their blue. This means the enemy is going to hard counter you with this high level blue buff route. What do? Don't worry, as that's exactly what we're going to teach you in this video, how to not only counter blue buff routes, but absolutely destroy them. So let's get started. The first thing we need to understand is a brief history on the meta. The red into Krugs route emerged as the most popular path this season. Why is this? Firstly, it lets you hit level 3 off of 3 camps instead of the usual 4. This is due to the Krug camp giving the most experience of any camp. Secondly, the red buff itself is much stronger than the blue buff. It makes your auto attack do damage over time, which helps win early fights, as well as applies a slow on your auto attacks, which helps your early ganks. Thirdly, taking Krugs can be used as a stalling move, where we wait to see which scuttle the enemy goes for and then commit to the opposite one to avoid fighting a jungler that's stronger than us. Lastly, Krugs, as mentioned before, gives the most experience of any camp. By killing them so early, we get them to respawn much faster, which puts them at a higher level and gives even more experience on their second spawn. Think of it like an investment. As a response to this popularity, people came up with the blue buff route that completely shuts down red into Krugs. The enemy does red, we do blue, they do Krugs, we do Gromp, then move to the scuttle before them as the Krugs take much longer to kill. On top of that, you don't smite Gromp, whereas the enemy often has to use smite on Krugs to speed up their clear and not take too much damage. This lets you secure the nearby scuttle as you get there before them and have smite advantage. After this, you transition gank mid and soak 2 minions of experience. This lets you hit level 3. In the meantime, the enemy has to run all the way from Krugs to the opposite scuttle while they're still level 2. This results in you being at the second scuttle faster than them with smite up and a level advantage. As you can see, this is why this blue buff route directly counters the red into Krugs route. You can secure 2 scuttles from the enemy, hit level 3 before them, and land an early gank on mid. Alright, so what do you do when you start at red and you notice the enemy is starting at blue? There are 3 main routes we're going to teach you in order to shut down the enemy's blue buff start. One of them is an extremely effective cheese route that we'll be covering at the end, so stay tuned as you don't want to miss it. The first one is red into Raptors. Let's learn this route by studying a replay of Korean professional jungler Peanut, who plays for the LCK team Gen G. In this game, he's playing Gragas against an enemy Kha'Zix. He starts the game getting a leash on his red when he notices the enemy Jace show early top. This indicates that the enemy Kha'Zix is getting a leash from his bot lane at his blue buff. Peanut knows about the lethal blue buff opener that hard counters red into Krugs, so that's out of the question. Instead, he moves to take his Raptors. Once he's done his Raptors, he has a decision to make. He can go straight to the top scuttle, securing the scuttle before the enemy can contest it, since he'll still be in the process of killing the other scuttle. This is what I would recommend doing if you don't have early vision or feel you're in a low enough elo that the enemy jungler is unpredictable. However, in this replay, we get to learn how to use early vision to optimize our route even further. As Peanut is moving to the top side of the map, take notice of the topside ward that's at the ramp near river. If the enemy jungler was planning on rushing the topside scuttle, they would be spotted at this moment as they do something like blue into top scuttle or blue into Gromp into top scuttle. They haven't been spotted, so therefore we know they aren't rushing this topside scuttle and we're safe to take our wolves. Then, as Peanut is finishing up with his wolves, he once again checks his wards. However, this time the bot side pixel brush ward is more important. If the enemy was doing blue into Gromp into Scuttle, then transition ganking mid, we would spot him in the spot side pixel brush ward going for the transition gank to take top Scuttle. Since the enemy hasn't shown in either the top side ward or the bot side pixel brush ward, we know that we optimize our route further and take our blue buff to hit level 3. After this, Peanut then takes the topside scuttle, invades to get vision on the enemy Kha'Zix, and transitions into ganking mid lane where he picks up a kill. So to summarize, one counter is to simply do red into Raptors, then go straight for the top scuttle. The enemy isn't able to get there in time, and you deny them the ability to take 2 scuttles from you. At the same time, we saw in Peanut's replay how with early vision, we can optimize our route even further, taking more camps along the way if the enemy doesn't show that he's planning on contesting the top scuttle in our vision. Now red into Raptors sounds efficient and a great way to secure a scuttle, but not all champions can do that route. This is because for many champions, the Raptors can be difficult to kill. Only champions that start Hunter's Talisman and have AoE at level 2 can do Raptors so early. Champions like Gragas, Hecarim, Kha'Zix, Kayn, and Evelyn. But what if you're a champion that doesn't have AoE and starts Hunter's Machete instead? Champions like Lee Sin, Pantheon, Xin Zhao, Shaco, and Rengar. For these types of champions, we use our second route, red directly into top scuttle. Once again, we'll be learning this route using a replay of Genji Peanut playing Lee Sin against Olaf. He starts the game getting a leash on his red, where a ward shows that Olaf is starting at his blue. Remember, Peanut knows he can't do red into Krugs since Olaf can hard counter that route. Additionally, he can't do red into Raptors since Lee Sin will take too much damage and kill the Raptor camp too slowly. So after killing red, he moves directly to the topside scuttle. This secures a scuttle for Peanut and denies the enemy the ability to take 2 scuttles away from you. After taking the scuttle, you can choose to do a gank on the nearby side lane like Peanut does, or you can simply go back into full clearing your jungle. Now for our last route, this will be a bit cheesy, but it's super effective in low to mid elo. You start red, then immediately go to steal the enemy's red buff. This works because by the time you're moving into the enemy's red, they will be at their gromp and too far away to get to the red in time. Let's break down this route in more detail using a replay of me smurfing in Platinum Elo playing Graves against Evelyn. I get a leash on my red buff and see the enemy Urgot show top early. This indicates the enemy Evelyn is getting a leash at her blue. I now know that I can't do red into Krugs and choose instead to execute the cheese route against her. After killing red, I begin moving to her red buff, using the Blast Cone plan along the way to get there faster. Now here's what's really important. You need to save your early ward to place it in the Raptor Brush. This will let you know if they're trying to collapse on you immediately from blue, while also informing you on how to follow up with this cheese. For example, after stealing Evelyn's red, I noticed that she hasn't shown in the ward I placed at the Raptors. Now with this vision, I can safely steal her Raptors as well. This is 2 camps I'm now stealing from her. However, at this point, I see her trying to gank mid, which worries me as she could transition gank mid and go for the top scuttle. Notice how I leave one small Raptor alive to delay the respawn of the camp. I then move to secure the top scuttle to deny it from Evelyn in case she tries to take it by transition ganking mid. However, if the enemy doesn't show that they're going for the top scuttle, you can counter jungle them even more. In this replay, I'm once again smurfing in Platinum and playing Jarvan against Kindred. I start red and see the Kindred is starting at her blue from my Pyke scouting. I know I can't do red into Krugs, so I decide to use this cheese strat against her and move straight to her red buff. Again, I use the Blast Cone plant to get there faster while placing my early trinket ward in her Raptor Brush. After stealing her red, I move to take her Raptors since she hasn't shown in my Raptor ward or transition ganked mid. Then I spot her bot lane. Again, I make sure to leave one small Raptor alive to delay the spawn of the camp. After taking the scuttle, I now know I can invade her Krugs since she showed bot lane earlier. Now, I also delay the respawn of the Krugs. What you need to do is keep the initial medium Krug alive. So I kill the ancient Krug, then kill the 2 medium Krugs that spawn from it, and then the small Krugs that spawn from them. By leaving the initial medium Krug alive, I've delayed the spawn of this camp. I've now stolen the enemy's red, Raptors, and Krugs while also securing a topside scuttle. On top of that, I've delayed the spawn of both his Raptors and Krugs, which will put the enemy really far behind. I follow this up taking my blue, Gromp, Wolves, and then recalling because I want to purchase items to fight over the upcoming scuttle spawn bot side. I then take the Krugs since I know I have time to take them before the scuttle spawns. I'm now level 5 and can move to secure the second scuttle spawn. I've stolen 3 camps from the enemy and full cleared my jungle. Alright, we went over a lot, so let's recap. We started by establishing the history of the jungle meta and how red into Krugs emerged as the most popular route. As a response, people have begun using the blue into Gromp into Scuttle into transition gank mid to soak 2 minions of experience to hit level 3 into top Scuttle, which directly counters it. Because of this, you want to be aware of what route to use when you start at red and the enemy starts at blue. You can't do red into Krugs and instead have to choose between 3 different options. If you are a champion with AoE at level 2 and start Hunter's Talisman, then you can do red into Raptors into the top scuttle. If you're a champion that starts Hunter's Machete and lacks AoE, then you can do red into directly taking the top scuttle. And if you want to cheese the enemy, then you can do red into invading their red, making sure to place a ward in their Raptor brush. You can then follow this up by stealing the enemy's Raptors and even their Krugs depending on your scouting information. Alright, what do you think of this strategy? Let us know in the comments section below, as well as any questions you might have. As always, good luck and have fun on Summoner's Rift.